Welcome to Deciphering Growth, the show that explores mental health from every angle. We bring you conversations with personal opinions, stories, and practical tips. We aim to break down the stigma and help you live your best life. So please sit back and let's dive in. Before we begin, we want to remind our listeners that this podcast represents the opinions of Tiffany Graves, Eric Stone, and the show's guests. The content here should not be used as medical advice. It is for informational purposes only, and please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions. Views and opinions expressed in the podcast are our own and do not represent that of our places of work. This podcast should not be in any legal capacity whatsoever, including but not limited to establishing a standard of care in a legal sense or as a basis for expert witness testimony. There is no guarantee regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on the podcast. In no way does listening, reading, emailing, or interacting on social media with our content establish a doctor-patient relationship.
So, are you ready to dive into part 1 of our holiday series?
So is this part 1 or part 2?
That's true. This is part 2. I guess part 1 was our introduction. Don't mind me. The holidays are already making me forget things.
That's a very honest therapist answer right now. Part 2, food stress / challenges and recovery, staying sober. So 2 big topics that we're going to try to highlight today.
Yes. So, do you want to start us off or?
Absolutely. I think maybe we could start with discussing maybe food first, and then maybe pivoting to talking about like substances and recovery. To be very clear, Tiffany and I are not saying that these 2 things are the same thing. We just would like there to be something offered by us that cover enough topics before, and so that is why we have combined these 2 today. So just if you're a eating disorder specialist or a addiction specialist, appreciate you, love the work you guys are doing, and we are just trying to get some information out today by doing it. So the holidays are stressful. Tiffany and I have been talking about this for a while of why we want to do the series, and it is just very honestly that we are noticing the holidays impacting us literally as we're recording this today. And so you are not alone. It is impacting just, I think, the world right now, and everyone is feeling it a bit. That stress kind of picking up for the end of the year, the major US holidays and religious holidays upcoming.
Yeah, I won't lie to you guys. I'm feeling it. Like, I'm sure I'm a therapist and it's my job to help people get through the holidays, but on a personal level, like the holiday stress has been hitting, and it's easy to get wound up in the worries and stresses of just doing the holiday season for sure.
It is. So, kind of talking a bit about stress, and we know that the holidays are stressful, even if you're having some positive things. And so, stress can
Mhm.
certainly change the way we're interacting with several things, not to mention food. So, Tiffany, am not an eating disorder specialist, would not pretend to be, but I do talk with people about ways of managing stress, and sometimes when that up comes with food. So that is a little bit more about what I have. But before I kind of pivot there, is there anything you'd like to share, Tiffany, about just like food and stress with the holidays?
Yeah, so I just want to also throw that out there. I am not an eating disorder specialist, nor do I pretend to be. That's not my greatest realm of competency. But when it comes to talking about food, trying to help individuals remember that the holidays only happens once a year, and it's super okay to indulge, and it's also super okay to have those boundaries of deciding not to indulge as well.
Yeah. So we don't hate food here, and we don't have any strong things. We just want to have a mindful relationship with how we're interacting with things. So that is the goal of this. So at the same time, we know that typically there's a lot of holiday food that is made, and that can be very tempting to maybe overindulge or feel like you're not honoring maybe the plan that maybe you are trying to follow for your body. And so, Tiffany, anything you would add?
Um, a lot. I won't lie. Thinking about food in the holiday season, um, is extremely stressful for me. I have a lot of dietary restrictions, and it can be really difficult to hear people talking about, oh, I get to eat turkey, or oh, I get to eat stuffing and rolls, and I'm like, oh, like that's awesome. I don't get to have fun and eat all those things.
Mm,
Um, so it's kind of like I'm excited to like see the food, smell the foods, but at the same time it's like, oh, this kind of sucks because like I'm tired of
mm,
hearing about all these delicious foods that I can't indulge in. And I think professionally and personally it can be triggering and frustrating and even like a little bit saddening to be in that position of like I want to engage and talk about and converse about good food, but at the same time like for health reasons, I just can't. So you unintentionally get like stuck to the side.
it kind of made me feeling left out of like what is maybe what most people consider one of the holiday experiences.
Yeah.
That is a great perspective. So I appreciate you sharing that, Tiffany. Yeah, I think there's all different types of privilege, and I think that is a very real one that you may not even be aware of that you're maybe carrying. So I appreciate that discussion. I think maybe a different piece, maybe where I'm more fallen, is feeling like it's hard to say no, and feeling like, oh, I must make this count or go. And so it is not to pour salt in a wound to you, Tiffany, at all in discussing that. I think that is something I have personally felt and seen with my clients where there is like a just overindulgence, maybe even just gluttony on whatever the food may be, desserts, carbs, meat, really anything.
Yeah.
It could be anything, drinking, it could literally be anything, and how that also sets up people pretty poorly. Uh, and food is a, I'm not going to go totally off the rails on this, but food is a drug. You do get, dopamine from eating. There is a physical response. There's a there's a chemical response. And like, so
Yeah.
it is very hard for some people, and it can be addictive and also comforting.
Yeah. And to kind of add on to that, for those people out there who might be, viewing food as a coping skill, like to help manage stress and kind of on the different branch of like the holidays are triggering because there's so much increased access to food. Recognizing that like it can be really hard to be in that seat as well of saying like I know I struggle with this overindulgence issue and now my access is greatly increased, but how do I balance managing being with family and enjoying foods and all the other complicated emotions that come with that? It's really a difficult kind of intricate time of year.
It is. And we get so many messages about our bodies and food from so many different uh, places. It is not something that is just a singular issue. Like even if you were like, okay, I'm gonna cut social media, and that will like that could maybe help you, but it's a very complicated thing. And one of the things that I really love to tell my clients is wherever you go, there you are. So you could cut out other
Hmm.
things, but if you've already, had a lifetime of living with viewing things a certain way, it can be very hard to change. And so maybe getting a little more specific, one of the things that I think can just happen is we're all trying to deal with this stress of the holidays. And food is there. Food is at the gas station, food is in the drive-through, food is in your pantry, maybe your sneaky office drawer with delicious snacks. Like it's there. But also there's holiday parties. There's we're recording this after Halloween. There's candy, there's sugar. And so it is easy to turn to things to deal with stress. And so, what we would maybe encourage here is to try to have a balance of what you're using, no over reliance on food or any specific type of thing. But I was going to talk about just the 3 steps for maybe managing a craving. So, this is a little bit of substance use, but we're talking about food, which is delay, distract, and substitute. So tactic one with delay is try to wait out the craving. Give yourself some time. Say, let's see if I can go another 10 minutes. I'll check in on this in 10 minutes. Just giving yourself that time to slow down may help you just kind of know, am I hungry? Do I really want that 6 cupcake? Do I really want to feel overly full? Or am I just tired? And Tiffany, anything you'd add with maybe delaying tactic to that response?
Yeah, something to use to your advantage, especially during the holiday season, is we tend to love to converse while we're eating. So taking that time to like eat something, converse, come back, reevaluate, how am I feeling? Do I feel full? Am I comfortable? Before taking that extra bite, before, indulging in more food. So just using that as a great kind of like pause point to like check in with your body, check in with your mind, check in with yourself, and ask yourself, like, would this next bite of food or indulgence item be worth it for how I'm feeling right now?
I think that's a really good read of like just deciding what is worth it and what is not. And sometimes maybe it is worth it to eat more or go for it. And maybe sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
And it's just being more like intuitive eating, like knowing what's going on in your body, knowing what works for you, and just listening. And sometimes that's hard to listen if we have all the holiday music playing and we're around people
Mm-hmm.
and we're running from thing to thing to thing. And it's maybe harder to notice those signals. The second piece of this, of just steps to managing a craving, would be distracting. So just doing any of those pleasant coping skills that maybe can give you a space. So it could be watching a silly video. It could be taking a breath. It could be being with people, being with your animals, looking at art. Really how I would define a coping skill is anything that does not hurt you or someone else. So if that is what that is for you, then lean into that. Let that be an outlet. Anything you would add, Tiffany, for distractions?
Yeah, so I'm not often one to encourage people to like overindulge in phone use because it's good and bad. But in this instance, it might be great to take a break to share some funny TikToks or online videos or memes or GIFs that you've seen with your family to give yourself a little bit of an actual break away from the food table, away from the indulgence items that are present in front of you. Um, or maybe even taking like a walk or like taking a moment to check in with other people. Kind of using what's around you as your advantage to take a little bit of a break from the indulgence that's right in front of you. Because personally, like I'll give the shameless plug. I know if there's something in front of me that I want to eat, French fries is a terrible one. I'm going to eat them. If I don't step away, if I don't evaluate, like all of those French fries are going to be eaten. And then 5 minutes later, I'm going to be like, that was probably too much.
I mean, absolutely. I was just even thinking about it's like, oh, I'll eat half of this. I think some folks are able to maybe do that. I don't know if everyone is. And so I think it's just maybe having that lack of judgment for like what is able or not able to be done. And it's very interesting because the last one here for these steps that we have is substitute. So trying to decide on your craving after delaying, distracting, maybe trying to find a healthier alternative. This is assuming that you are not wanting to overly indulge and you've identified a reason. So if you want to indulge, feel free to indulge. There's nothing wrong with indulging on occasion. This is if you're wanting to make a different distraction. So maybe having a healthier snack or just having maybe a substitute. If you're looking for pleasure, maybe it's, hey, I'm going to, go call someone. I'm going to do something different. As like instead of having maybe food be the release of dopamine.
Yeah, and something else to think about. I know there's a lot of stigma around what is and isn't healthy, but thinking about food in a less black or white perspective. Like pumpkin pie in of itself necessarily isn't like healthy in the terms of comparing it to an apple, but if you're not eating it every single day and if you're not eating the whole pie, there is a healthy portion of pumpkin pie you can have. And trying to keep in mind that just because you want to indulge in sweets, you want to indulge in these things, doesn't mean they're quote unquote unhealthy. It just means it's an indulgence for that day.
Yeah, it's a human biological response to crave sugar, fat, carbs. And so there's nothing wrong with you if you notice that you have a strong sweet tooth or are wanting to enjoy those things. It's just letting those decisions or that enjoyment not impact maybe other goals or maybe other things going on. So for example, having too much sugar, then having a sugar crash of feeling like you're not able to be present with your family at a holiday event. I think that could be something that could happen for some people. Not always, but could potentially happen.
Yeah. I mean, I won't lie. I've personally found myself in that space of where I'm like, I'm eating, and before I know it, I'm like, I've had so much sugar. I feel like I can't like sit down, and I'm jittery, and I'm like, ah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, what is the food maybe giving you? If it's bringing you joy and it's bringing you that fulfillment, like that isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think the challenge for some folks, and this is when I would recommend maybe checking in with like an eating disorder therapist, or maybe talking to someone, is when every single time that is maybe wanting to be done, it feels like happiness, it feels like joy, and then just kind of checking in. But that's a decision between like a therapist and a client and a doctor. So definitely with not giving any advice on what to do, but just kind of maybe having that check in of like what is maybe matching my goals for myself and living in alignment and feeling as healthy as possible.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think one of the things that I think of with food is the pressure. And this kind of touches on some stuff I'll get into, but maybe, grandma makes great pie and she only makes this pie once a year. And that is awesome. Like my grandma makes a mean pie. I don't know if my grandma will ever listen to this, but if she does, I am speaking quality over her old-fashioned cream pie. And it's lovely. At the same time, maybe you are on a different journey this year and you're not able to or maybe don't want to. Like it could just be as simple as not wanting to or feeling like you can't. Because you eat one slice of pie and it starts a lot of different things for you. That's okay. And so just knowing that like we have to have boundaries and be okay telling people no, but you have to do its best for yourself.
Yeah. And on that realm, I know it can be so easy for us to say sometimes, but being able to live your journey. Like if you want an extra slice of that custard pie or cream pie that your grandma makes and you're comfortable with that decision, being confident in that decision because you're the only one that's going to live with the consequences of choosing that extra piece of pie. And if you're comfortable with that, like you can tell other
Yeah.
people mentally to fuck
I think
off.
the other end is maybe feeling like maybe not overindulging, but just maybe like not eating enough. And then that could be its own thing. So I would just maybe shamelessly add no one is permitted to comment on your body and what is going on with it and telling you what to do. It is probably the worst advice I've ever heard as someone that was going through an eating disorder or lived in this, lived experience without being told that people would come up. It's like, oh, you should eat this, or do this. Like that's completely wholly inappropriate in any context, let alone at a holiday function. So if you are someone that has someone in your life that is dealing with that, really choose your words carefully and mindfully. I sincerely promise you that is not helping anyone make any decisions that are positive for themselves. Shame and guilt does not bring about lasting change. You can look up any study you want with pretty much any concern you want. It will show and have that. So that's my shameless plug.
No, and I think it's a great message to set out there to people that a lot of people will be struggling with a lot of different stressors revolving around food. Food in itself brings a spectrum of issues that people struggle with. But kind of doing your best to be mindful and keeping your verbiage to yourself when it comes to food, unless you're doing it in a way that's non-judgmental and neutral. Because you never truly know what type of food stressor an individual might be struggling with.
Yeah, I think it's just not assuming. It's so hard. I think that touches on everything we're going to get into with this like series for us, but just not assuming what people are going through and really not but like reaching out a hand but staying in your lane. And so I think maybe something that I hear a lot from people is like, well,
Hmm.
how can I help them? How can I do this? And like, well, I try to offer help, but I just keep getting told I'm triggering and going, like there are ways to non-judgmentally offer help that aren't stepping, like there's a way to reach out a hand but not force your hand 2 inches from someone's hand and be like, why aren't you taking my hand? So I just think it's the approach of
Hmm.
this and kind of open. And honestly, we're not entitled to everyone's journey, story, or experiences. And even as a therapist, I'm not entitled to that. So just if you notice someone maybe doing something differently, maybe just mind your business, honestly, like if they want to tell you, I'm sure they will. I mean, we'll have stuff prepped for if someone's not minding your business and how to handle that. But I just really, if you're just a person noticing, like maybe just give them some space, like maybe you don't need to know. I think social media is a beautiful thing. We love to feel connected, but like I don't think we're meant to know everybody's business that's raw. If something is still healing, it's a little more challenging to talk about it, to share about it, to be vulnerable about it. And we're not entitled to that. Like truly we are not. Even as I'm just saying, like as a therapist, I'm not entitled to that for a client. So why would you be entitled if that's your friend or family member at a holiday function?
And to add on to that, for those individuals who like to keep growing and keep changing and thinking about things in a different perspective, if you're having that urge to say something about an individual and how they're engaging, I encourage you to turn that inward. What is it about yourself that's, triggering you to want to say something? And kind of like, taking the step back to question, like, what's happening that I feel the need to say something about someone's behavior that isn't impacting you.
Yeah. And I think there's all these TikToks and memes about like, oh, I wanted to go eat, but my partner wasn't going to come with me. So, it's like, that's funny in some sense it is. And on the other hand, like we don't need other people to be enjoying something with us so that we can enjoy it. Like we don't need to feel guilty. So the goal of this is not so you feel guilty if you eat pumpkin pie. I'm just picturing a Costco pumpkin pie. Sorry. It's like I feel like my family, we always get this Costco pumpkin pie and we all only eat one slice and it just sits there. And it's like I have to have this mindful eating experience. Like I don't want to eat like my weight in pumpkin pie. Like we could talk about pies another day, but I'm like, I don't like anything tastes good with like Cool Whip, just like whipped on. It's like I don't want that. Like I don't, but then I have this battle. So all this to say, like we can choose to what we aren't going to enjoy without feeling guilt. So just please, if you're listening, don't feel guilty one way or the other, but maybe do try to think about what approach you're coming in with this. And Tiffany, is there anything else about food or just the relationship with food that you'd want to maybe add in our just kind of preliminary discussion on this?
I think just to add on to what you're saying about the guilt piece, just trying to remind people that like while we are encouraging you to like hopefully not feel guilty about what we're saying because that's not our intention, but if you are feeling guilty, just know that like that's a normal human emotion to have and it's okay. We don't want you to feel shameful for having that emotion. But it might be something worth processing through if it does come up. Like guilt and shame are the two most difficult, not talked about human emotions we have. And I think they occur a lot more frequently than we like to admit to ourselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think the other I don't know if last. We could talk about food all day. The other thing that kind of like pops into my mind that was finding was that about 60% of people feel guilty about snacking during the holidays. And about 74% of people say that's the only way they get through the holidays. So I kind of feel like that statistic speaks to me and says a lot of people maybe aren't actually really enjoying the meals that come with the holidays. Instead, they're like really refraining and just living on snacks, which is to me, it makes me a little sad. But at the same time, it's also kind of like, wow, like, are we this rushed? Are we this pressed that like we can't sit and actually enjoy the meals that we're taking the time to like make sure we have snacks with us to get through the holidays?
I do think that it's quite the layer there to that. And I think that there's some stuff that I think this the challenge I think Tiffany and I have had doing a series on the holidays is there's so much you want to cover and there's so much that
There's so
could be
much.
helpful. And it's just it's like I think there's this like maybe feeling that like wow it's like it's overwhelming, how could we ever tackle it, but it's like it's okay to start somewhere. And so maybe just I'm thinking of someone that's maybe noticing they're snacking a lot. It could be like, okay, what is this maybe giving me right now? And I feel like Tiffany, maybe if it's okay with you, I feel like I'd like to maybe pivot the discussion on maybe substances because I just feel like I really want to do that justice and more justice than maybe what we would maybe be able to do today. Just like I think this food one, like I think we are doing a great, starting gambit move. But like, if you're dealing with some of these things, it can be maybe a normal challenge or stressor, but just kind of checking in with someone if it's getting to that level where it's impacting your quality of life.
Yeah, yeah, and we can always come back and have another discussion about food in general. Even when it's not a holiday season, food still tends to be a stressor, as does substances. And this is just kind of our little plug to help remind people that it's normal to experience extra stress, anxiety, attention to these topics during the holiday season. With that being said, I know this is kind of like your forte ground. So how would you love to kick us off into this topic?
With addiction or food? Sorry.
Oh, with the addiction
Okay,
and substance
sorry. I thought you
consumption.
said food. I was like, I have misrepresented myself. So I was like, I feel uncomfortable. Yeah, I think it's just a hard time of year. I really consider Halloween to New Year's the red zone for my people in recovery, my people struggling with addiction. It is such a hard time of year. It can be beautiful, it really can, but it can be so hard. And I think all of that's happening maybe even at the same time. Like it's beautiful that you're sober and in recovery and are noticing things and feeling yourself and just coming back to life, but also you're coming back to life and you see maybe some of the life you've lost, maybe some of the pain that's happened, some of the things. So that was where it's like I really want to come back and do like a much like maybe the next one we do dive in a little bit, but I want to honor that we're touching on this. It just maybe because I don't know when you're going to hear this right now. Like if you're listening, like it's okay how you're feeling about all this. It is a really tough time of year. All of those feelings are valid. Feelings bring up very great uh, questions. Just sometimes they don't come up with the right answer. And so the reason that Tiffany and I combine this is like setting some boundaries and being in the social situations is where I think when we talked about this, where we thought the food and the addiction, maybe being in recovery stuff could be helpful. So I just have a few just very standard things that I think will maybe be more helpful to you in this moment if you're dealing with this. So set some gentle boundaries. It is so cool to say yes. It's also okay to say no. Do you have family that's always pushing food on you, pushing, like, hey, like everyone drinks wine at my house or what? Like, that's probably a place you can't be in. And it's no judgment for that person, but it's just like there are places maybe that you cannot be in. So I think really important is just to plan ahead, like knowing hey, every time by the time the parade's on, the beer is out. And then by the time it's lunch, it's just not a good vibe. Like you got to protect yourself. You have to do its best. Maybe it's not a forever thing. It's just maybe even just a right now situation. I can't be in that place. But if 99 out of 100 times you're drinking in that scenario and you can't afford what that opens up for you, that's a decision you got to make. And my favorite way of thinking of this is play the whole tape. Don't play the tape of just what works out and justifies you doing that. Play the tape of like, okay, I have a drink and then I have a really nice time with my family. But also because of that, I'm going to stop at the liquor store on the way home because I'm not, once that starts, I'm not, if I've had clients with the all or none thinking so often. It's like, well, I'm already messed up, so I might as well go for it. It's like, never too late. Lapses happen all the time. A lapse can be a mental decision of thinking about it or romanticizing it. It could even be a slight start with the substance, but it doesn't have to go all the way. It's really never too late to stop, say when, even if you're on probation, even if like just whatever the situation, it's never too late to stop. So I don't want to go overboard and just a very general, but just that like, it's okay to do what you need to do for yourself.
Yeah. And I am not the expert that you are in this topic, but the individuals I do work from that are, recovery isn't always an ongoing process. I always ask them if they find themselves in a position of where they want to drink, what is your comfort level? Where is your comfort zone? And I've had numerous individuals be like, oh, I drank one drink. And I was like, how did you feel about that? And they're like, oh, that's totally fine. Like it was no big deal. And I was like, I think it's important for you to like set boundaries with yourself and know what you feel comfortable doing and what you're not comfortable doing. For some people, it might be zero tolerance. For other people, it might be 1 to 2 drinks. Kind of finding what works best for you.
I'm not old school AA. I love AA. That has saved a lot of people. It also, to be fair, has hurt some people. And I'm not judging it as an institution. I love what it's given some people, but it is a little more all or none. And I respect the help that that is given. Like, I truly like that is a free resource that has helped millions of people. And I don't want to discredit that. At the same time, there are millions of people that that does not work for, and they almost have not even started that journey because they're like, well, I'm not able to go all in, so why would I start? And so that's where I just, want to honor both. But yeah, like, maybe you're able to set a limit, maybe you're not, but all I would say is you better be dang sure what you can and can't do, because you're risking your recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Very precious thing, and the gifts of recovery off of that decision. And maybe talk to a therapist, maybe talk to your sponsor, talk to someone that's going to be real, because man, you can justify a lot of bullshit, like myself included. So just making sure you're not like, oh, it'll be great, it'll be fine. It's like, has it been fine any other time you've done it? Then maybe we need to not risk it for the biscuit. Like, the biscuit is you get to have a beer or something, right? Like, that's what you're getting. Like, I know it's the connection, whatever, but leading into the next point, alcohol free. There are so many zero alcohol substances out there right now, like 0% beer,
Yeah.
mocktails. Just, if you miss the connection, like, maybe you can handle being there and not drinking, have something in your hand, like, that's okay. But you don't have to be drinking. The connection comes from human beings being together. It's not because you're having alcohol in your system. If you're feeling anxious, find other ways of handling the anxiety to connect with people. Um, shameless plug.
Yeah. And just to kind of add on to what you're saying, I know some individuals in my life have mentioned that it's really hard to want to go out and be socially connected with people, not because those people intentionally shame them, but because society has such a overarching grand scheme of like socialization equals drinking equals eating, and there's that awkward
Mm,
guilt that I mean I've encountered with a lot of people in my life where they're like, I don't want to go out because I don't want to be seen as the odd person. I don't want to have to deal with the questions of why aren't you drinking. And just kind of
yeah.
reminding you and normalizing that society does have a pressure on you when you do go out. And it's okay if you make a boundary of saying, I don't want to go out because I don't want to deal with that, because that can be triggering and it can jeopardize recovery process if you're putting yourself in a situation where you just don't want to deal with the stress that comes with it.
You may have to do different things. One of the conversations sometimes I have with clients is they forget how fun things can be not under the influence, but
Yeah.
like they haven't done it in a long time. Also, when we're early in recovery, sometimes the brain is healing so that we're not maybe noticing the regular amount of dopamine and pleasure we would normally feel. And so that can be challenging. So to make that change or just break that habit, but you have to know your reason why you're sober, why you're making those decisions. If you don't know that right now, when it's not stressful, it does not magically come to you in a moment of intense stress. Like, and so one of the things, like, I have not served in the military, I am not a first responder, but one of the things in those communities is you go back to your level of training. And if you're not prepared for how you're going to handle really intense triggers, stressful situations during the holidays, they are going to hit you like a freight train. And that is not because you're a weak person. And that is just one myth I'd like to just throw out. People who relapse over the holidays are not weak. They are not failures. They are dealing with some very challenging things, and they need our love letters and our support. They don't need our like condemnation and photos on social media looking like one of the worst days of our life. Like, that is not helpful. That's not helping people. And one of my frustrations, it's gotten mostly better, but sometimes news organizations will take photos of someone's worst day of their life because they did a crime under the influence, and they will put it everywhere. And I don't think maybe they realize the impact that has of people not wanting to reach out for help, for not wanting to be seen as that. Um, Again, old school AA folks, I respect you so much. I love the work you're doing. Also, I'm not calling anyone an addict, because that is a very stigmatizing term. When people hear the word addict, they think they're drinking in a bottle on their lunch break, or life is a disaster. Versus if you hear the term person in long term recovery, that hits different. And that means that people have made some different decisions. Shameless plug if you're interested in that. The Voices and Faces of People in Recovery is a wonderful organization. They have lots of amazing things talking about it. Every slice of life of people is in recovery. So I feel like that's all I could get at right now is know your why and lean into that. Schedule things that are going to rejuvenate you. If you know it's going to hit very, very hard, that you're not at the family event, you need to schedule something. And a shameless plug for meetings. There's a meeting all over the place come those major holidays. We're talking like Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, kind of the big, whatever your big, like you can go into the meetings guide app, find a meeting wherever you are, in person, online, whatever. But don't wait. Do not wait for that moment. Schedule some things, break it up. That's my shameless plug. Like just plan ahead, and it's okay if you mess up. Like millions of people are going to mess up during this holiday season. It's okay. It does not mean though that you have to go all the way back, like that doesn't have to be what it means. It just means, hey, I learned about myself. I need to manage my holiday stress better.
Yeah, I think the metaphor that comes to mind as you were talking about that is if you're hiking a mountain and a tree or a rock has fallen in your path, which could represent the holiday struggles, we can either climb over it, we can climb under it, we can forge a new path around it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the stop, it's the end point, it's the end all be all for the journey.
I love that. I could talk for 20 hours about this. And I didn't realize that because like I'm gonna ask you questions. Like it's just very important to me. Like I get so spicy because it's like, this is life and death
Yeah.
for some people if they go back to this and stuff. So I'm just gonna throw out a PSA to anyone. If you see someone not drinking and there's drinks out, they know. Like just for real, everyone knows where the wine bottle is, what it looks like, the beer's in the fridge. Like you don't need to I just, if I could just throw that plug, like, just let people be. Like, again, I think it comes back to like, well, I don't want to drink that. Like, just talk to people, meet them where they're at. But also, like, I don't think anyone wants to be around someone that's completely drunk. Like, I wouldn't want that for myself. And I'm not in recovery, let alone. So it's like, just being mindful. But like, we don't need everyone to be drinking so that you can drink. I think it's just like, I don't know. Just sometimes people get really into it. It's like, oh, well, if he's not drinking, then it's like, that's not what that has to mean. That's a personal decision for them. And they would probably respect your personal decision. And if they don't want to be around you, they won't be around you. But also, if your holiday event is everyone like completely drunk out of their minds, like maybe that's something to just picture of like, is that really a healthy environment? And is that environment worth more than someone who's in recovery being around so that they can join you in your holiday festivities and be together? I'm going to stop because I'll get much spicier than this if I keep going. So, shameless plug, please take care of your people in recovery, not just during National Recovery Month, but all the time. It would be really appreciated. It would make the world a better
Yeah.
place.
And just remembering that, like, making sure you extend a hand without forcing the hand for support.
Yeah, I think that's hard. Tiffany, these are really heavy topics. Is there anything else you'd want to add
They
here?
are really heavy topics. Whenever I think about substance consumption and that ongoing battle that so many people struggle with, I think something that really comes to mind is the loss that comes with that, the grief that comes with that, and kind of like how that lens can change your overall journey. And some people don't appreciate how people are managing the journey with that added extra lens.
I think this is good. I think maybe continuing with maybe all of these discussions, but then we're going to kind of try to specialize a little bit more talking about trauma. But I just didn't want to, I think, just break it. I wanted it to be broken up a bit today because I don't want to shove stuff at people on this, but there is more I think I'll probably share on addiction. I think maybe there's more here, Tiffany, for you to share on some of the
Yeah,
just
I think
food and holiday
as
stuff.
we're talking about this, I think it's important for you guys to know like this is kind of just our intro to the holidays and topics that are prominent during the holidays. We for sure have it on our radar to do full episodes on like food in general, substance consumption in general, because it's not just a holidays pop up and these issues pop up. These are constant, ongoing things that people battle with on a daily basis. We just wanted to make sure that we're giving people a little bit of a voice going into the holidays because this can be, as Eric put it so perfectly, a red zone for so many people.
And in that, there can still be beautiful moments. So I just want to say, like, it can still have its moments, but we are here for you. We want to support who we can, both therapists and just people. And so if you have anything we can do to be further help, please reach out to us. We love getting those questions and messages. It is definitely why we have focused on a few of the things we have focused on today is from some of
Yeah,
those.
all
So we
questions,
appreciate
comments, concerns
those of
are
you
welcome. We would
hanging with
love to
us.
see our inbox filling up so that we can just bring you more curated information. Yeah, it's been great today. We did let Eric get a
Well,
little
thanks, Tiffany.
spicy.
Appreciate you. A little spice. I think next time I'll be more spicy. I just was like, ooh, I don't want to overshadow the importance of the discussion about food in the holidays. That is why I think that's a really important discussion that I'd love to be the emphasis of today. Like a little bit of stuff we talked about just because it builds off of, but I don't want to step on that.
Yeah, but I think it's important for all of our listeners to know that, like, this is Eric's specialty. This is where he shines. This is where you go to him if you need help. And also, like, humanizing Eric too, and the fact that, like, he is going to get spicy about things he's passionate for, and that's okay. Like, every therapist has their passion that they're willing to fight for.
Yes, and I think the eating stuff is so important. So I don't want to make light, like you can't choose what you're passionate about. I really respect and love the colleagues doing that work. It is so important. I am just very passionate about my folks in recovery, my folks in addiction, because that's just like, yeah, that's just you just I'm like it's like a jolt of espresso. I want the best for all of them as much as possible. So thanks for that, Tiffany.
Yeah, we have a lot of important topics we'll be covering, and they all fall on the same level of importance. It's just sometimes we give a little bit more passion to the ones that speak to us most.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Deciphering Growth. We hope you found our conversation helpful and insightful. Growth is a journey. Taking it one step at a time is okay. If you've enjoyed this episode, subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. If you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to contact us on social media. We love to hear from you. Until next time, keep growing.